Okay, dividing fractions. This is where we are right now and kind of where we're wrapping up with the unit. So let's take a look at some review. Some basic things that we talked about earlier is that a unit fraction is anytime you have a numerator that is 1. So 1/4 is a unit fraction. A reminder that you can write whole numbers as a fraction by putting 1 in the denominator. So 5 wholes can be written as a fraction as 5/1. And inverse means the opposite. So the opposite of add is subtract. The opposite of divide is multiply. Those things will come up with dividing fractions. All right, so we're going to take a look at what it means to divide first a whole number by a fraction. So we're going to start with, I'm going to use red. We're going to use 4, and we're going to divide that by 1/3. Okay, so the problem that we have here, what we have here is we're just kind of asking ourselves, we're saying to ourselves, we have 4 wholes. So we're kind of asking the question, how many 1/3 parts or pieces can I make with 4 wholes? Now, some of you are probably already thinking, but that's kind of what we're asking. How many 1/3 parts can I make with 4 wholes? Well, to model this, we can use the most awesome Math Learning Center app tool, which is the number line. And I love this. So if you're not using this tool, use it. It's so good. So the first thing I have to do when I use this tool, and I'm just going to kind of slide my numbers over here a little bit, I have to look at what am I dividing by? I'm dividing by thirds. Okay, so this denominator is telling us what my parts, that's my parts. So I know I'm working with thirds. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to my number line. I'm going to go down to the wheel, and I'm going to make sure that I click fractions, and I change my number line to thirds. So now I have a number line that goes from 0 to 4, and I'm counting by thirds. The first number is my whole. Okay, that's what I'm going to divide by. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use my hopper tool at the bottom, and I'm going to slide it over, and I'm going to turn on, see the little 1 at the bottom? I'm going to turn it on so it labels my part, and I'm sliding it over to show the 4 wholes. Okay, so I have 4 wholes. I need to figure out how many 1/3 parts can I make with 4 wholes. Well, I'm going to come down here to the hopper tool again, and I'm going to create a 1/3 piece. That's a 1/3 piece, very tiny. So I'm asking that question, how many 1/3 can I make with 4 wholes? How many 1/3 will fit into that 4 whole part? Now, the beautiful thing about the fraction app learning tool is that there's this duplicate button down here at the very bottom by the trash can. You can duplicate your piece, and it'll make the exact same fraction over and over. Now, I'm only making 3 because I know that 3/3 is a whole. So I have 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. That's something that I know. 3/3 is equal to 1 whole. So basically, when I get to 1, I know that I can make 3 1/3 with 1 whole. So I might write a 3 here at the top. Like that might be something I write at the top because I just made 3. Now, if you really need to see it and you need to keep going with this, you can certainly do that. Okay, so I can keep going with the duplicate tool, and I can keep counting. However, many of you are probably figuring out, well, wait a minute, Miss Breen, if 3 make 1 whole, then another group of 3 would make 2 wholes, and that is right. So I could count by 3s, which would come next. 6. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can keep going to the next one. 3, 6, 9. And finally 12. So basically I'm counting by groups of 3 because there are 3/3 in 1 whole. So if I look at this as 1 whole, here's the 1 whole, I have 3/3. Okay, so if somebody says to you, how many 1/3 can I make with 1? Well, that would be 3. In this case, we have 4. So I have a group of 3. I have another group of 3. And I can keep going. Now, again, if you need to do this, I highly recommend, because it makes more sense if you see them all laid out. And all I'm doing is using that duplicate tool to make my thirds over and over and over, because that's what I'm doing. I'm figuring out how many 1/3 I can make with 4. Done. Okay, so again, here's another group. 1, 2, 3, and one more. There's my 4 holes, okay? 1 hole, 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes. And again, if you slide this down, you can see they're equivalent, okay? They are the same. And we can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 3, 6, 9, 12. So 4 divided by 1/3 is equal to 12. I can make 12 1/3 pieces with 4. Now in class, some kids figured out, they were like, wait a minute, Miss Breen, I am just multiplying by 3. You're absolutely right. So 4 times 3 equals 12. Well, let's go back to how we can write 5 wholes as a fraction. So this could be written as 4/1. This can be written as 3/1. Well, what is the inverse or the opposite of divide? It's actually multiply. So this is the inverse or the opposite of multiply. Divide is multiply. And 1/3, if we inverse that, or we use the reciprocal, so that's another word you might hear when you're dividing, reciprocal. 1/3, 3/1, that is the opposite or the inverse. It's called the reciprocal. And you can flip those and you're actually multiplying. It's the same thing. So 4 divided by 1/3 is equivalent to 4/1 times 3/1. Now, a lot of times teachers will just show you to just, change this to, change the division to multiply and then flip your fractions. And that is a really good thing to help you remember. But if you look at this number line, it makes sense what we're actually doing. We're just trying to figure out how many 1/3 parts I can make with 4 holes. Okay? All right, we're going to try one more so you can see it one more time using this fraction tool. I'm going to reset my screen. It's going to say, are you sure? Yes, I do. I'm sure. Okay, this time I'm going to change it up a little bit. Instead of dividing by a unit fraction, I'm going to do a new one. We're going to do 6 divided by 3/4. Okay, 6 divided by 3/4. Again, I'm asking myself, what am I dividing by? I'm dividing, what are my parts? My parts are 4. So I have to come over to my number line and change it because I have it set up with thirds. Go to fractions, 1/4. I'm dividing by fourths, so my fraction needs to be in fourths. All right, done. Now, this time, I'm starting with 6. Ooh, I got to slide my number line over a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of move my notes a little bit, make my number line bigger so I can get it. I almost have it. Okay, I need 6 holes. I'm starting with 6, so I'm going to create 6 holes here, all the way. Turn on my counter. Okay, this time I'm dividing by 3/4. So I'm going to come down here and make another, use the tool here, and shrink it to 3/4. All right, so now I'm asking my question, how many 3/4 can I make with 6? How many 3/4 can I make with 6? All right. So one strategy would be to make one and realize or see that every 3/4, 1, 2, 3, you can make a dot. 1, 2, 3, make a dot. 1, 2, 3. You're just skip counting by 3/4. If that doesn't work for you, you can use the duplicate tool and you can slide it over and you can make your 3/4. I love this tool. For me, I'm a visual learner, so it makes sense to me to see this on a number line. I'm just skip counting by groups of 3/4. How many of these 3/4 can I fit into 6? And I have it done. Okay, and again, if I'm using my hopper tool, 1, 2, 3, make a dot. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you can just keep going. And again, this is just another way you can identify 1, 2, 3, how many parts you have. 1, 2, 3. I land right on 6. It worked out nice and evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I can make 8. Perfect. So my answer is 8. 8 holes. And if you were using the hopper tool, if you were skip counting there, you could just do 1. So here, I'll use the pen. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, a little off a little there, but you got it. All right, now, how does this work with the inverse? Now, remember, we said that when we're dividing 4 divided by 1/3, it's equivalent if we do 4 times 3/1. Okay, so let's try that and see if it works. I'm going to keep my hole because I'm not changing this. The hole is staying a hole. I'm dividing by 6. So you see how the 6 lines up here with the parts? I don't want to change that. So 6 has got to stay my hole. So I got to keep my hole. Then I'm going to do the inverse or the opposite of divide, which is multiply, and I'm going to use the reciprocal, okay? So what is the reciprocal of 3/4? Well, it's just 4/3, okay? Now, let's see if we get 8. Multiply just like you would any other fraction. 6 times 4 is 24. 1 times 3 is 3. And you go, wait a minute, Miss Breen, they're not equivalent. Oh, but they are. How many 3s make a 24? If we simplify this, we get 8. It works. So both strategies are perfectly fine. You can multiply by the inverse, which would be multiply by the reciprocal of the fraction that you're dividing by. But if this is a little hard for you, and sometimes this is not something that makes sense. For me as a learner, I had a hard time with this. I had to see it on a number line, and it made so much more sense to me. Okay, so this is a really, really good strategy for helping you to divide. Now, in the next video, we're going to take a look at what happens when it doesn't match up. So in all the ones we've done so far, our parts equal the whole. See how they match up? So there's no leftovers. But we learned in class that sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, and there are leftovers, and we have to use a fraction, and we have a mixed number as an answer. So we're going to take a look at that in the next video.